So after the whole fiasco and constant delays of that Bloodborne video from the other week, which by the way I want to thank you all so much for the support, I wanted to do something a little simpler in concept, and for my own sanity, hopefully shorter. I figured it's been a while since I did a nice fun New Vegas weapon restricted run, so with that in mind, it was just a matter of deciding on what to use. These tend to be more interesting when it revolves around a weapon I have never used before, and being an absolute simpleton who rarely uses firearms in New Vegas, that leaves a lot of options. So with that in mind, today we're going to figure out, can you beat Fallout New Vegas with only PEW PEW? Been a while since I've done the whole announce the title of the run in the video bit, hasn't it? For those of you who are unaware, PEW PEW is a unique laser pistol that is the reward for completing the Legend of the Star quest. You know, the annoying fetch quest for the 50 blue star bottle caps? The one that most people don't even bother doing once due to how tedious it can be? That means, before we can even truly start the run, I am going to need to run across the entire Mojave, ping-ponging from location to location, until I have enough stars to be able to get to the weapon, and therefore defend myself. If there's one saving grace about any of this, it's that most of the caps are found in areas without any enemies. Plus, this will be the third time I have done this quest within the span of a year, so I kinda have most of the locations memorized to a degree. I'll get into the finer details of the weapon when creating my build and when I actually get the damn thing. Oh, and a bonus rule for me, just for fun, I decided to limit most of my healing to just drinking Sunset Sarsaparilla. Why? Well, the quest and weapon are heavily tied to it, so I figured it would be funny. I'll probably still use doctor's bags to cure limbs though. That way we aren't left with the concussion blur for the entire run whenever I inevitably get slapped upside the head. Now with all that out of the way, let's begin. The character name is Brock, you know, from Pokemon. Why? Well, he's from Pewter City, so it seemed appropriate. That doesn't mean I even tried to make my character look like him though. For specials, it was a high intelligence, agility, and luck build, with a normal perception stat and a slightly higher endurance. Intelligence for more skill points as per usual, nothing surprising there. As for agility and luck, well, PEW PEW can only fire 2 shots before it needs to be reloaded, or in other words, it PEW PEWs once before it can PEW PEW again. This means I will be spending most of my time reloading the gun, so a higher agility to speed up reload times would be an absolute godsend. Luck is rather self-explanatory as well. If it crits, it does 2.5 times its damage, so having a higher chance at doing that seemed like a no-brainer. Endurance is for health, obviously, and perception gives a very slight boost to energy weapons for every point invested in it, so it can stay as is. Tag skills continue the train of being rather obvious. Energy weapons for damage, survival because it can lead to some great perks, and then finally the sneak skill. Simply, due to the fact that I won't be able to defend myself until I get 50 of the star bottle caps, being able to solid sneak my way around most encounters seemed like a good idea. Finally for traits, I just go with skilled and wild wasteland. Built to destroy for extra crit chance was probably the way to go, but ah well. I drop everything that the game forces upon you for having its different editions, and then I begin the search for the caps. On the bright side, we are off to a great start, as 2 of them can already be found in Goodsprings, both in the seemingly unimportant houses that you would have no other reasons to investigate other than sheer curiosity. Future Nerbit, put a star cap total on the screen so people don't get lost. Yes. There's a third one very close by at Gene's Skydiving, likely the first one most people procure, so we grab it next. There are some in the direction of the Mojave Outpost and by Prim, but for the time I'm going to go via Sloan and the Black Mountain shortcut to get some of the others that I know about. Plus it also helps that I'll be marking helpful locations for later on and reaping the rewards of the XP from finding said locations. On my way up the road I get a set of leather armor from one of Ringo's dead friends, fix the generator, heal up Snuffles, and then grab cap number 4 from the mess hall in Sloan. I should note I am also stealing any and all sarsaparilla I can get my grubby little hands on. Partially for healing, and partially for the fact that with each one consumed there is a very slight chance that I will get a star cap for my troubles. I play the old trick of walking up to Chomps from outside of his field of view, making him think I just came from Vegas. I then mark Hidden Valley for later, meet Neil, and then proceed through the Black Mountain shortcut. I walk head first into the boulder for some baffling reason, and all things considered, I'm doing pretty well. I decided to have my first drink here to heal up a little bit, and wouldn't you know it, I get a star cap for my troubles. Our first stop once we make it through is the Repcon building. Sure, exploring the place is rather tedious, given that I'll need to take the tour as I lack the lockpicking and science skills to bypass any of the doors. But on the bright side, doing so, we can get 5 more caps from this building alone. They are split up amongst the multiple floors, but thankfully I grabbed the keycards and passed the necessary luck checks, so I never have to worry about them sicking the sentry bots on me. I also used the key in destroyed floors to slink my way down into the room with the matter modulator. It will be worth a lot of money, sure, but what we are really here for is all the microfusion cells. If we take these back to a workbench, we'll be able to convert them into energy cells for PEW PEW. Up next was the 188 trading post. Sure, another cap is a fine addition, but I also get lucky enough that the arms merchant is selling reinforced leather. Assuming I want to go down the route of optimized crit build, that's kinda me set for the rest of the run in terms of armor. Just down the road we reach Boulder City, this gets us just enough XP to reach level 2, where I dump everything into Sneak, and then take Swift Learner to offset the drawbacks from Skilled. The Bighorn Saloon in town, a location I tend to forget exists if we're being real, houses cap number 12. Now that my Sneak skill is a respectable level, I engage in the next stage of my master plan. I begin waiting. You all know where this is going. He of course warns us about other collectors and says he himself stopped trying for the prize years ago. Well, that doesn't mean he is capless, far from it. In fact, he has 6 of them on his person. Of course, we cannot murder him for it no matter how much we may wish to, and now the second reason for tagging Sneak becomes very clear. Once he turns his back, I'm able to sneak down and swipe the 6 caps without him being any the wiser. You would be correct to assume this means we can now also steal the Star Cap necklace from Thomas just outside of Nipton for another bundle, and as such, that's where we're heading next. Although we make our way there via Gene skydiving and not from Boulder City. Only one reason for that, and it's the raiders halfway between the trading post and Novak. The leader there tends to carry a grenade launcher, and frankly I don't feel like dealing with that right now. On the bright side, going down towards Prim opens up more Star Caps on the way. Such as the 2 I was able to grab at the drive-in, the one in the building halfway there, and then yet another from the Nipton rest stop. Fortunately, the Rad Scorpions proved easier to evade than I initially anticipated. Up to the Mojave Outpost for one more, plus I can accept the quest from Ghost to check out Nipton. It's about one of the only quests I can do right now as it requires 0 combat on my end. The Sneak skill proves its worth once more by not only allowing me to bypass the raiders and the destroyed house along the road, but as mentioned earlier, I'm able to steal Thomas's necklace as well as recover 2 other loose Star Caps from Jacqueline's corpse, and just like that, we are already over halfway to the reward. I spoke with and agreed to spread the Legion's atrocities for Fault Bays, which just results in me getting double the experience for Ghost's quest by returning to her with the bad news, along with telling Sergeant Kilborn that the furries are coming. I have absolutely 0 idea who I'm going to side with today, hence why I am being nice to everybody. Oh, and there was also another cap in one of the houses in Nipton, just FYI. I take the path out of Nipton that leads to the Legion's safe house as to avoid more of the raiders. All of note that I got from this was some snazzy new sunglasses. I know there is a star bottle cap in that building over there, but I also know I will be eaten by ghouls if I even think about it. Next up was Novak, 2 more caps here, one in Daisy's room and another in a random house in town. The latter of which took me a little bit to find, as I could have sworn it was in Nobark's home, but I appear to have been mistaken. Just outside of town is Old Lady Gibson's scrapyard, heading into the nearby garage, and we can claim yet another. Gotta say, this is going a lot smoother and faster than I had initially thought. If I was just going to keep following the path of that of a first playthrough, then Camp Golf would be the next major location with caps for me to collect, and luckily, it's another place that has more than one. Conveniently, they are all right next to each other in this room that clearly belongs to somebody else dead set on claiming the treasure. While I'm here, I also grab the VIP card for the Lucky 38, may come in handy, who knows. Being that we are right next to Lake Mead, I decide to go for a dip as, you guessed it, there is in fact some more caps at the bottom of the lake, specifically by the sunken sarsaparilla truck. I run into a spot of bother mind whenever I am joined by just a whole... Hang on one second. Whenever I am joined by a whole cast of crabs. Well, for whatever reason, they also cannot attack while in water, so they are just as defenseless as me. That said, they are doing a great job of body blocking me, making it a tad difficult to come up for air. Pretty sure there's like 3 or 4 bottle caps in this wreck for me to claim, but I was only able to find 2 after multiple plunges. So, while the Mirelurks may not be able to hurt me in the water per se, the instant we all make it to land, I am going to get jumped. My plan was to swim back to Camp Golf and then make a beeline for it, in the hopes that the troopers would lay waste to the crabs. Like usual, I am overthinking the scenario as I barely have to get a few feet away from the lake and over some obstacles for the Mirelurks to immediately lose interest and go back to doing whatever it is they do. I made a somewhat risky call here by quickly fast travelling to the fisherman's shack, as there is yet another cap inside. As luck would have it, they weren't around and I was able to grab the cap. However, on my way out, the fisherman himself returned. He didn't seem too happy about me being in his house, so I awkwardly made eye contact with him for far longer than I should have, and then just skedaddled off to somewhere safe. The next few are in safe and easy to reach places, so I'll just rapid fire them. Bench at the Grub and Gulp, kitchen at Aerotech, barracks at Sharecropper Farm, on top of the radio in the Crimson Caravan Company, and finally one in Field Shack just outside of Nellis. With only 2 to go and having been on this search for 2 hours, I said to hell with it and just began guzzling down all of my Sunset Sarsaparilla. Despite having around 30 of the damn things, I was only able to get 1. Annoying, but not unexpected. Thankfully, there was one I had missed back in Prim. Due to me taking the path out by the tents and towards the drive-in cinema, I completely bypassed the one that is in the unmarked house at the edge of town. Sneaking past the convicts was easy enough, and even if I couldn't, it's not like they were all that tough in the first place. With that, I finally had 50 caps, and could claim my reward. The Sunset Sarsaparilla headquarters is just to the west of Sharecropper Farm, so we can be there in a flash. Talking with the nightmare fuel that is Festus, we can accept and then immediately complete his request at collecting 50 of the star bottle caps. My reward for doing so is a history lesson that may or may not even be true. Rightly pissed by this, we ask for a better reward, to which point he unlocks the nearby doors and directs us to the back rooms. No, not that. The offices in the back of the facility. 2 problems. The room with Pew Pew is currently unreachable the traditional way due to the part of the building having been destroyed. So, like when we grabbed the matter modulator prior, it's a lot of finding your way to a higher floor so you can drop down to find an alternative way to our goal. The second problem isn't that much of a big deal, but there are now Protectrons and Mr. Handy's out for blood. They are easy enough to avoid, so before long we can reach the room. Scattered about the place is a whole heap of badges along with the body of Alan Marks, another man who was obsessed with the legend and was known for killing others for their caps. You know, I think the only other time he may be mentioned is by Malcolm Holmes. Considering Malcolm could die before ever making it to the player, there is also the chance that this guy kinda just pops up out of the blue. Regardless, we pry Pew Pew from his lifeless, capless body and get to finally see what we're dealing with. I tested on the nearby Protectrons and it certainly lays on the damage mighty quick. The drawbacks are as mentioned, the fact you can only fire it twice before needing to reload. However, something I forgot to mention is that each shot doesn't just use a single energy cell, but rather 5 apiece. So that's 10 cells per reload. Meaning ammo just became a lot more valuable. Pew Pew also degrades faster than a normal laser pistol, but I'm not about to sit here and pretend like that's a problem, given how easy they are to find out in the Mojave, or to just buy them from most vendors for that matter. I suppose thinking about it, that could also extend to the ammo, as nothing is really stopping me from just going to different shops, buying their supply of energy cells, and then waiting for a restock. The issue with the slow reload speed is also gone, as upon completing the quest I leveled up twice and was able to take the rapid reload perk. That, in conjunction with my 9 agility, leads to some insanely fast reloading. You can see this in action when I decide to just start killing things. Not indiscriminately, but like just clearing out some of the areas I had run through before. After all, with the means to fight back, I may as well start checking off some of the quests I picked up during my scavenger hunt. First off was clearing the ants on the highway for Ranger Jackson, but that also meant dealing with the rad scorpions in the area first, as they were still patiently awaiting my return. I know it packs a punch along with a good crit chance and damage, but I was still taken aback by just how fast it was eradicating the scorpions. Once they are no more, I reach level 6 and take Travel Light to jog 10% faster. This isn't important to my build at all, but if I'm going to be sticking with light armor, I may as well squeeze as many bonuses out of it as physically possible. Comes as a shock to no one that if the rad scorpions couldn't take a pew to the face, then the giant ants would not fare much better either. I get my pointless reward and then take myself over to Freeside to do what else but go shopping for ammo, as we are already quite low. Obviously, this leads me to the Silver Rush, where I decide I may as well become a guard for the day. Not much happens here other than I antagonize Elvis Jr. into attacking me, so that I can easily blame his subsequent death on the Van Graffs should I ever decide to go down the route of the NCR. With that done, I then of course take multiple trips to the bathroom so that I may procure some energy cells. By the time I am done, I have 660 cells, or in other words, about 132 shots before I'm out of ammo. Probably more than enough for the time, so I continued on my way. And seeing how I have more than enough funds to pass the credit check, I waddle straight into Vegas to begin checking off of my list, so to speak. Victor immediately assaults me with a hello, and I figure, you know what, he is right, I should pay Mr. House a visit straight away. So, with the help of my trusty VIP card from Camp Gulf, I can see myself in, and can demonstrate the wondrous effects of laser eye surgery on Mr. House. News of my visit with House is already spread like wildfire, resulting in a meeting with Ambassador Crocker, which of course is just him begging for my help to get some air support for the NCR. For now, though, we have bigger fish to fry, specifically Benny at the tops. I was already prepared to do this the old-fashioned way of persuading Swank to set him up for me in his room, but something I forgot to consider was that Pew Pew is a laser pistol still, meaning it classifies as an advanced holdout weapon. And with my many points dumped into Sneak, I can stay strapped in the tops, and they are none the wiser. Like clockwork, the mere sight of Benny bestows us with just under 1000 XP, leveling us up, and I put most of my points into speech. Almost feels like a waste of points, but I want to be able to pass the check to convince Quartermaster Barden and Hoover Dam to trade with me, as if I can do that, I'll never need to worry about ammo again. Back to the matter at hand, with me being allowed to keep the Pew Pew, I realistically don't need to lure Benny to his room, and can instead just start blasting. However, I do so methodically by making appropriate use of stealth. By being completely invisible to the naked eye, I can begin systematically disposing of the guards on the upper level, therefore being out of Benny and his bodyguard's line of sight, allowing me to land multiple sneak crits for 5 very easy one-shots, with no one else in the tops being any the wiser. I make my way down to grab the platinum chip, level up again, this time taking toughness, and can then leave the tops only to be greeted by the Foxman once more. The world is my oyster, so to speak, as I had many ideas on what I could do next. Ultimately, I'm an absolute glutton for experience, so I decided to return to Hidden Valley so that I may begin slaughtering the nearby centaurs in the crater, and began pushing my way up the side of the mountain to deal with Tabitha. We all know how this goes: tickle the door through the fence to bypass the physical realm, take the key hidden underneath the rock to enter Tabitha's room, and then engage in a fight in an awkwardly cramped room as a big blue Karen tries to pulverize you with a giant piece of metal. Can't say I'm surprised, but it only requires 4 shots to take her down. Actually, it may have been 3, pretty sure my second laser hit her super sledge instead of her, as it doesn't seem to have done much damage when compared to the others. I take a little time to round up and wipe out the remaining Nightkin, as well as raid the nearby building of all its useful supplies, and then it's back to Boulder City. I had the speech skill required to convince the cans to let the hostages go, and then made sure the NCR held up their side of the bargain. Slaughtering my way through both, especially the cans, would have been a breeze. But I still wanted to remain in their good graces, especially the Great Khans, as there was something I wanted to try with them later, more on that in a bit. Despite leveling up a few times during all of this, I completely forgot to increase my speech skill enough for the Quartermaster, so I quickly returned to Good Springs to help straighten out the powder gangers, and then with the convict-induced bloodlust still fresh in my mind, I made my way down to Prim to finally relinquish control away from the escapees so that the town could be saved and watched over by its new rightful metallic cowboy saviour. With that, I was now a smooth enough talker to get into Barden's pants and start buying off the necessary ammo that I required. With more than 1000 cells nestled somewhere on my person, it was time to start meeting and dealing with the other major players. Despite not showing much interest in them up to this point, other than spreading gossip for Volpes like an Oblivion NPC, I figured it was a good idea to make my way to the Cove and see about making use of Caesar and his band of misfits. Nothing interesting on the journey east, ran into a mole rat and a few ferals, but that's about it. I made the smart decision to head there from Wolfhorn Ranch and not Novak, as coming down the road that way always has me getting jumped by a rainbow of different coloured geckos. Arriving at the fort, and like the casinos, I can somehow sneak the giant red painted pistol on my hip into the camp, with the Legion being none the wiser. Doesn't mean much, mind you, as after meeting with Caesar and being instructed to head down into the bunker and destroy what's there, I'm handing my weapons back anyway. Also, when you arrive, Caesar's men take the chip from you, but then Caesar himself hands it back. So, this implies that one of these dudes at the entrance just books it straight up to Caesar while you're also making your way up there. I don't know, the idea of some poor legionary just trying his darndest to sprint up the side of the mountain out of sight of the courier to get to Caesar seemed really funny to me. Anyway, down in the bunker, try not to be too alarmed, but the Protectrons and turrets barely put up a fight. The turrets I'm able to shoot outside of their range and sight given that they cannot move, and the Protectrons are, well, Protectrons. They are not stopping anybody no matter what. Making it to the control room and dismantling the final turrets, I insert the chip and set the Securitrons back at the strip into killing machines. Caesar, being so full of himself that the idea never even crosses his mind to send someone down into the bunker to make sure I held up my end of the deal, congratulates me on a job well done, and much like Crocker, sets me off to bring in the boomers. I'm just a little bit off level 12, so I steal and return Sergeant Teddy for enough XP to nudge me over the threshold. All I do this time is take the second rank of toughness to aid my survival. I mentioned before about how I had a plan for the Great Khans. Well, I figured now was as good a time as any to kick it into high gear. I returned to Good Springs to make my way to Red Rock from there. I know it's incredibly dangerous, but I'm more than confident in Pew Pew to keep the Cazadors and whatnot out of biting distance. I started off by thinning out the local rad scorpions near Good Springs for some easy experience. Seriously, the more you think about it, it's nothing short of a miracle that Good Springs is still standing, given that they have giant scorpions in their backyard, followed by Cazadors, and now Deathclaws who have moved in just down the street as well. After I had my fun with the scorpions, I began slowly make my way north, all the while being very observant of my surroundings. So long as I can spot the Cazadors first, I'll be fine, as I always make a point to shoot their wings. As soon as you cripple one of them, they must crawl across the ground, and at that point you can just outrun the buggers if need be. Fortunately, there wasn't many of them, so I was able to take them out one at a time with ease. I kept my eyes peeled for Deathclaws, as it's not uncommon for them to venture down here, but my focus was immediately swayed to the Vipers in the area, who were hitting harder than I remembered. I shouldn't complain about the damage I'm taking, to be fair. After all, I am one-shotting most of them. It's about time something clapped back with a strong attack. Well, the Vipers don't take long to be brushed away, and once they are, it's a straight shot to the canyon. Well, I made 2 brief stops on the way, one to eradicate an entire line of bighorners, and another to make use of the Khan's armory. Thankfully, helping Jessup and his men was enough to grant me their services. Not only do they sell energy cells, but the microfusion cells and electron charge packs can also both be turned into more energy cells at the nearby workbench. By the time I am done, I'm at a total of 1,603 cells. At Red Rock, I chat with Papa, who has nothing interesting to say if we're being real, and then get to work helping his tribe. I start with Jack and Diane's drug running business. First off, they want me to find Anders, who is currently setting a world record for the longest T-pose down at Cottonwood Cove. We free him, send him back, and then do the runs he was meant to. This involves jumping Dawn like some sort of aggressive salesman right as he finishes his shift at the Crimson Caravan Company, and then making our way to Vault 3 to hand over a shipment to Motor Runner and the Fiends. The Fiends outside try to fight back, but I get to happily demonstrate to them what a real energy weapon is like. Also, yes, since they're all carrying laser weapons, this means more ammo for me. Dropping off the shipment, we return, and that's the end of my work for the runners. Next is helping Melissa, who sadly is not in the canyon, but rather waiting up the back end of Quarry Junction. Granted, we can reach her in a few minutes by heading there from the rundown town where we had a brief shootout with the Vipers. However, the problem is the Deathclaws are in the vicinity and I'm not going to be able to sneak around them. Well, to be perfectly honest, they weren't as much of a roadblock as I initially thought. Much like the Cazadors, so long as I can spot them from a distance, I can begin focusing all of my fire on one of their legs until it breaks. Once that happens, the once normally speedy Deathclaw becomes a slow-moving joke that really I just have to put out of its misery. I'm not out of the woods yet, mind you, as once I agree to help get the package for Melissa, and am sent down to Sloan to locate it, I am taken aback by the sudden screaming as a Deathclaw has decided today is the day and that he was going to just wander into Sloan and take over the outpost. By the time I can come to their rescue with the power of VATS and a nearby sandbag to keep us separated, it's already too late as he has sliced up everyone bar a single worker. This included Chomps Lewis. Would it be a bit insensitive to say he bit the dust? Regardless, I thought that was the end of Melissa's quest. This is because Chomps is in fact her father, and after discovering that the case in Sloan is empty, he is usually the one that points you towards the contact for the shipment. Thankfully, there's a nice easy workaround for this, and that's that Chompy had a note on his person that gives me the name and location of her contact, Tyrone. I meet with him in Prim, use my speech skill for probably the last time if we're honest, and then return to Melissa and finish the quest. Don't tell her about her dad though. One final thing at Red Rock, and it's that I send Jerry the Poet off to become a member of the Followers Apocalypse. Not much else to it, he now leads a happier life, and I get XP, so all is right with the world. Alrighty, last stage in my master plan for the Khans, ironically, does not directly involve them at all. In fact, it's a Legion assassination quest that I can get from Dead Sea down in Nelson. Come to think of it, he doesn't tell me to do anything. I kinda just make up the idea for the quest myself, as I promise to help him break the stalemate with the nearby NCR, to which I do by systematically wiping out all of their high-ranking figures at Camp Forlorn Hope. I managed to take out the first couple without anybody else spotting me or causing a ruckus. That doesn't last, sadly, and after disposing of this officer, everyone in the camp is alerted to my presence. Again, I could probably just go full psycho and dust everybody, but I still kinda wanted to remain on good-ish terms with the NCR, so I opted to just finish off my targets and then hightail it back to Nelson. Despite the war crimes against them, the NCR only consider me a punk. Talking with Dead Sea, he congratulates me on one-upping him and gives me his unique machete. Should sell for a pretty penny. Now with this quest finished, the next time I return to Red Rock Canyon and converse with Papa Khan, he acknowledges my slaughtering of the NCR and appoints me as his heir, so that when he dies, I will become the leader of the Great Khans. I'm sure you can all see where this is going. Waiting till nightfall, I sneak into Papa's room, commit some good old-fashioned patricide, and just like that, gang leader. At first, it seems like nothing's changed, but the options only present themselves once we speak to Regis. We can either appoint him the new leader and have him take the clan out of the Mojave, tell them to fight for the NCR, tell them to fight for the Legion, or tell them to just start killing everyone once they make it to Hoover Dam. The last one sounded kind of interesting to me, so I decided to go for that. As truth be told, I've always known about becoming leader of the Khans, but I've never actually witnessed what happens when you go through with any of these options. Well, seeing how they now hate everyone except me, the instant we are done here, they blast poor Carl into the afterlife for simply being within earshot of this conversation. Considering I've picked the Chaos route for them and wanting to potentially get the most use out of it, I suppose that means I'll want to side with Yes Man now. Per Ambassador Crocker, he has just been sitting in that chair awaiting my return since near the start of the run, and now I'm not going to follow through with the help. Also, I guess that means Pacer died for nothing. Oh well. With a Yes Man run now being my primary focus, you now know what that means. Time for some absolutely bloodthirsty tomfoolery involving me disintegrating every single person in a white striped suit within a 2-mile radius inside Gamora. I would make the joke that they'll need to bring in a cleaner to swipe away all the dust, but truthfully, I'd probably shoot him too if I suspected he was working with them. I also did something similar to the cannibals over in the Ultralux, but we don't care about that. I know all of you like you know me. It's the Omertas who we're here to see vanquished. After all that, I restock one more time from Barton and then engage in the final roundup of the factions. I could just visit the Brotherhood and then tell Yes Man to leave them alone, but that's not very fun. So instead, we're going to go full scorched earth. And I have a plan to tip the odds in my favour. After getting as many energy cells as money could buy, I take them all over to the workbench in Goodsprings and transform them into overcharged cells. When compared to normal energy cells, these do 1.25 times more damage and ignore 5 points of a target's damage threshold, making it great for burning through power armor. It also degrades the weapon 1.5 times faster, but I've also been buying every single energy pistol I've come across, so I am not lacking for spare parts. Plus, we are about to head into the Brotherhood's home turf. If I need more energy weapons, they will have them in droves. Making it to the bunker, and once more, I believe I have underestimated our little friend here. Obviously, the overcharged ammo was going to pack an extra wallop, although what I did not expect was for that to translate to one shot in the head without a crit would be enough to instantly take down anybody wearing a suit of power armor. I need to stop saving the Brotherhood for the end as some sort of major menace to deal with, because clearly if you build your character right, they aren't that much of a threat. The footage may be heavily chopped up in the background, but that's just to show the sheer ease of this purge. When something goes this smoothly, I can only comment on it for so long, so with that in mind, yeah, the Brotherhood gets turned to dust and then buried underneath rubble, so that no one will ever find even a single trace of their existence in the years to come. All that leaves is the Boomers, and just like the Khans, I am going to enlist their aid. Their quests are short and require very little work, so I can spare the time to help them. Plus, I planned on going back to Lake Mead to settle the score, so I may as well help them out while I'm there. Listening to their history and fixing the panels is the same as ever. Clearing out the ants required slightly more brain power than usual though. Due to them gobbling up all of the gunpowder, lasers will make them explode upon death. If one of them does that, down with the rest of the explosives, then it's curtains for us. Thankfully, if we enter the station from the top, we can either shoot one of the ants on the ground floor, or one of the many nearby explosives, and set the chain reaction off safely from up here. It'll wipe out a good few of the ants, plus we shall remain out of harm's way. It's a true win-win. I get a little reckless at points though, and do end up standing a little close for comfort when the ants start popping. At the very least, it's nothing that a few chugs of the sarsaparilla can't handle. Once they're out of the picture, it's time to raise the bomber and return to Lake Mead. As mentioned before, we have some fish to fry. I start where I saw them last, but they were nowhere to be found. Not one to give up the search, I began scouring the shoreline and was able to dispatch a few who were unlucky enough to see me. After them, I returned to the fisherman's shack, and wouldn't you know it, he's still here. He doesn't seem as inviting as last time, so I detach his head from his shoulders to give him time to pull himself together. The only other place with a whole cast of them would be the scavenger platform, so I guess that was our next stop. Approaching the thing is like the beginning of Saving Private Ryan, or the start of the war chapter in Conquer's Bad Fur Day if you're feeling different. I'm able to make it to the ramp, but the instant I do, I am pelted from all sides and almost immediately killed. I quickly take down the one on the ramp with me, and then crouch down and begin using a mix of it and the lake as a form of cover from the rest of the lake lurks. While this is going on, I am drinking lots of my sarsaparilla, but it doesn't exactly heal you quickly, so I must keep up the evasive maneuvers and only take pot shots at the crabs whenever I see an opening. The good thing about this is they all do go down in a couple of shots, so it doesn't take long to pick them all off one at a time. The number of close calls here was frankly absurd. So many of their psionic wave things skimmed mere inches from my head throughout the entire ordeal. In the end, I was able to emerge victorious, only slightly worse for wear. Also, yes, I saw it too. One of their blasts is just floating in midair, not moving or disappearing, no matter how long I stood next to it. I even tried walking into it, but it seems it doesn't have a hurt box, so I don't accidentally off myself. While searching the barge for supplies, I come across another blue star bottle cap. Ultimately pointless now, I'm aware, but I still take it anyway. Turns out, after finishing the quest, any you pick up just turn into normal caps. Makes sense, as the courier has no need for them anymore, but still, it would have been nice from a collector's standpoint to still be able to collect and keep the rest of them. After all that, I raise the bomber and enlist the help of the boomers for the final battle, which is going to be starting in the next few minutes. My status as a sneering punk makes me unable to attend the president's speech, so he is going to have a few new speed holes whether he likes it or not. Oddly enough, I go straight to Hoover Dam from here to get my last batch of ammo, and nobody seems too broken up by the fact that their leader has literally just perished moments ago. I really don't need any more ammo, but better safe than sorry, I suppose, you know. Seeing how they were just wrecking everything, I also made sure to upgrade all of the energy cells that I had at this point to overcharge variants just for fun. I was also dangerously low on sarsaparilla after that encounter with the lake lurks, so I made a return trip to the factory and raided all of their crates to get a nice, healthy, albeit overcompensating, supply of beverages. From here, it was a very quick trip to the Dorito substation where the NCR were not too pleased to see me. Well, the ones inside were pissed, the guards outside the building didn't have a care in the world. But once I fiddled with the controls, it was time for the final battle. It's a complete and utter free-for-all at the dam between me, the cans, NCR and Legion, plus there's also a single Securitron there. The NCR are seemingly still on good terms with me, so they aren't hostile at my presence. However, they do open fire on my cans, so they must die. To say I do all of the work here would be an understatement. I ended up taking out the few NCR defenders and the approaching Legion assault on my own. As for the cans, I worked so hard to get and specifically told to attack the dam and kill everybody. There was a grand total of 3 of them, and they're all already dead. Totally worth all that effort. I get into a sticky situation with the next group of Legion soldiers as I'm pinned down behind some sandbags. Granted, they also saved my life because without them, the Legion would have gunned me down in 5 seconds flat. For whatever reason, they don't try to approach me, even though that would have spelled my doom. Rather, they stay back and start firing randomly. This allows me to drink up and heal, plus pop my head around the corner ever so slightly to begin whittling down their numbers. Sure enough, it takes about a minute to do so, but I can emerge victorious and proceed into Hoover Dam. Not much to say here, there is less threats and they all go down as easy as previously, so no problems here. In fact, it's about the same once I'm outside again. Sure, I could slowly start inching my way across while dispatching the Legion troops, but after activating the dam, the Securitrons come in full force and the Legion are absolutely powerless to stop their advance. Thanks to the travel light perk I took way back at the start of the run, I am faster than the Praetorians in the camp, so I can just keep running backwards outside of their melee range, leading to some very one-sided fights. On to the big cheese, and well, it's one of those quick and simple encounters, so, like tradition, I'll just let it play out in full. Imagine if I had managed to actually land a sneak crit on his head at the start of the fight. I could have potentially two-shotted him before he even got a chance to engage me. On to the real final fight, I suppose, despite how anticlimactic it is, and I am of course referring to the General. Well, I deal with him personally with 2 body shots, and then back up around the corner so I can reload out of sight of the Rangers. I would have played peekaboo with them and took them out that way, but as you can probably guess, Yes Man and the boys dealt with them long before we got a chance to do that. With that done, I approach Yes Man, finishing the game and proving yes, you can indeed beat Fallout New Vegas with PEW PEW. Want to know a fun fact about this run? I never died, nor did it crash, once. This legit might be the smoothest run of New Vegas I have ever done. Was it easier than expected? Definitely. Was it fun? Yeah, it was. Like I've said before, I enjoy messing around with stuff in these games that I normally would never even think about using. Not sure what's gonna be next, this one kind of just came to me randomly, so who knows. There are a few shorter and simpler runs I wanted to get done by the end of the year, stuff I've promised people in the past, but we shall see. Nothing is ever really set in stone. Well, other than the never-ending annual Lincoln runs, I suppose. Regardless, that's going to be the end of this challenge video. If you enjoyed what you saw, consider giving the video a like. If you're interested in more challenges in the future, feel free to subscribe as I try to run these videos out fairly frequently. My name's Nerbit, stay safe everyone, I'll see y'all in the next video.